All right, guys, it's time for tonight's Tool Time Award. And this evening, the award goes to Republican Congressman Stephen Fincher. Now, Fincher was elected to represent Tennessee's 8th congressional district in 2010. And he was part of the Tea Party movement that swept the nation, a movement fueled in part by outrage at the cozy relationship between big business and Washington, anger that the banks got bailed out with our taxpayer dollars. And now all of this is rather ironic, of course, considering that the Tea Party was bankrolled by big business, pushing the type of deregulation that caused the financial crisis that led to the bailout. But as the bipartisan Wall Street bailouts quickly became a political liability in 2010, Tea Party outsiders, people like Stephen Fincher, deftly took advantage. So take a look at some of his campaign rhetoric. And this is actually before and after he took office.
The reason John Tanner needs to come home is because he has left us a long time ago. He voted for the largest tax increase in U.S. history. He voted for both bailouts.
We need good policymakers in Washington that are going to cut taxes, let the free market go like it's supposed to.
The people of the 8th Congressional District, they sent me to Washington to stand up for working middle class, to stand up for the free market. Taking time to get in the mess we're in, it's going to take time to get out, and we have to do what the American people want.
That's right. Stephen Fincher rode into D.C. to stand up for the free market, the working middle class, and to oppose Wall Street bailouts. Now, according to Bloomberg, he even ran an anti-bailout campaign ad 98 times in the Nashville area. And as his campaign website states, quote, to restore prosperity, we have to change the way things are done in Washington. Stimulus bills, bailouts, sweetheart deals for Wall Street and big banks, this must change. Well, get ready for a big Rick Perry-style oops. See, yesterday, Bloomberg reported that Fincher was one of 10 Tea Party-backed Congress members whose 2012 re-election campaigns took money from bailed-out banks. Political Action Committees run by JPMorgan Chase, Wells Fargo, Goldman Sachs, and Bank of America have donated $11,500 to Congressman Fincher. Now, the 4 banks and Citigroup have donated a total of almost $170,000 to the Tea Party-backed freshman. What's deliciously ironic here almost doesn't really need saying. The banks probably wouldn't have had all this money to donate if they hadn't been bailed out in the first place. They received $150 billion in emergency relief at the end of 2008. But it's really not surprising that Fincher and his colleagues received this sort of Wall Street blood money. These banks have fought regulation tooth and nail, and Fincher and company are members of the House Financial Services Committee on the front lines of Wall Street's war against oversight. But Fincher stands out here as the only member of the Tea Party caucus and a supposed enemy of the bailed-out banks. And that hasn't stopped him from carrying the Wall Street water. Fincher has tried to repeat the part of the Dodd-Frank Act that gives the government the ability to break up the too-big-to-fail banks. If he had his way, the country would be en route to another bailout or Great Depression-style catastrophe. Fincher was also the sponsor of the so-called Jobs Act, a piece of legislation that's been described as a, quote, invitation to fraud by former regulators. But cognitive dissonance is nothing new to Fincher. Even before he took office, his hypocrisy was as obvious as a derivatives trader at Burning Man. During his campaign, the Washington Post pointed out that the agribusinessman took over $200,000 a year in farm subsidies. So does that really sound like a free market champion to you? It does to Stephen Fincher, apparently, because as long as you're funding him, he is willing to close his eyes to the truth. Clearly, he's no spring chicken when it comes to being a hypocrite, but for taking money from the companies who were bailed out, which he ran against, Congressman Stephen Fincher wins tonight's Tool Time Award.